there's a handful of you that are using the wheel and wondering about the stacked throwing technique that, you know, we've done it like in multiple ways. We've thrown feet onto things, we've thrown to do, or just to add to existing forms. But I want to review that technique with you and also just talk through like why one would even like do that technique in the first place. So firstly, this morning, in like this realm, I think, and then I'll throw that part today, and then this is a two-part demo. This is going to carry into Friday when we're going to do spots and angles on these as well and finish the other various forms. But I want to show you how to do the extended throwing on this. So you'll notice that in the other times I've shown you this, I've always done it on a bat. Rebecca wouldn't let me use this wheel this morning, so I couldn't use a bat, but it's good because I can show you how to do this without using a bat. Because, for instance, if you have a wheel, like the one I was on over here, there are no holes for bat pins. I could have put a patty of clay down and made a pancake and then a swirl or some cuts in it and put some water and suctioned that on to throw on a bat, but that technique wouldn't work for this because that is not an exact science. Those of you that have tried that probably know that when you put it on there, there's a little bit of play there because you didn't use pins to do it. But if you're using pins, it'll be perfectly back on center. But if you're doing it with a pancake, you'd have to like push this, like find the center, which is, it's just not worth your time. So, so had I thrown this piece on the bat, I could just pop the pins in here, put the holes, line those up right with the pins, and then I'd be centered and ready to go. But I don't have that, so I'm going to show you how to recenter this. But first, I have to throw the part that I'm actually going to put on here. So I'm going to take these calipers. Remember, the calipers live over by the paper towel dispenser. And I'm going to use my, take a reading here. There's my reading. And then I'm going to take some clay. I'm going to estimate. So if I want to go like in this realm, that's maybe dramatic, that's too big. Oh, maybe it's not. Let's see what we can do. So that's about, it's a big apple. I'm going to put this down just like anything. Don't add water yet. Get it centered. Roughly centered without water. Then do the fine centering with water. And again, as always with centering, I'm going to start on that shoulder. Apply pressure to that shoulder. And once the clay responds to that pressure, push it all the way down to the wheel head. And actually, I'm going to flatten this shape down a little bit more. All right. So, going all the way through. There's no floor on this. I went all the way through, so I just have a donut right now. Donut. I'm going to pull this back towards myself. I'm going to take my reading and see where I'm at. Okay, now what I'm going to do is just pull this. I'm not going to pull it all the way, but I'm going to thin the clay out a little bit so it's sort of easier when I get to this point. So about right there. Let's take another reading. Look at that.
Wow.
Okay, so I'm going to set that aside. Undercut. Put that there. Clean this up just a bit. Now, because it is going to stay a little bit wet for this next part. I do need to dry my hands. Where a lot of water, this thing wouldn't want to do what it's going to do, or hopefully does. So I'm going to tap it on center. And I do want to get this tapped like more than if I was footing something. I'm okay with a little bit of a wobble. But that wobble will be more pronounced doing this process if it's not like more centered. So that's pretty close right there. So what I'm going to do now is hopefully, I did, like I said, through this morning. It's leather hard, maybe a soft leather hard. It's not tacky anymore, but it has plenty of structure. But I'll do, let's say 4 lugs just to be safe. But remember, if you were on a bat, you wouldn't have to do this step, because when you wouldn't have undercut the piece, it would still be adhered to the bat. All right, so that should be pretty on there pretty well. I'm going to score it. And then, I don't have one, but it's fine. Usually I'd use a sponge to just... Serena, would you grab me one of those small sponges?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. All right. And this side we don't have to score because it's already wet. So I can just sort of crudely put it on there and then just pinch it, lightly pinch it on so it's somewhat connected. And then once you've gone all the way around, you can start doing the throwing again. Now I'll get this, I'm gonna pay attention here. This is kind of a tricky part, especially since it's a little off center. And then I'll talk about why you'd even do this in the first place. So notice I'm starting up a little bit. I'm starting up and then pushing down. I'm not throwing upwards right away. I'm actually getting this heeled onto the body. And I'm really going light with my pressure from the start because it's not stuck on there yet. Now I'll just work back up. And again, light with the pressure. And the uncentered clay is going to come, I'm going to pull this all the way through. The uncentered clay is going to come out on top. And then you can cut that off if you want. Not too bad though, okay. So, Serena, you were asking about the joint on the inside in here, and like noticing that there was a little bit of slop clay in there. This is the part where you can really heel that in well with your fingertip, or even get in there with a rib and compress it. All right, so let's talk about why we would do this. So what's nice about the extended throwing, like this example here, this is going to be like a, say, a large pitcher form. It's not that this form couldn't be thrown in one piece, but it's possible that throwing it this way can make it a little bit thinner because you're already this is already going to be really heavy with that much liquid in it. So this just displaces a bit of that weight. But there also might be forms that, like if I had necked this in more, or if I were to neck this in more, that would be a form that would be pretty hard to do in one piece, and it would probably, the process that you'd use to do it in one piece, your wall would be pretty thick. Or maybe you would end up doing like trimming, upright trimming or something like that. But this just allows you to create more articulate forms that you couldn't otherwise. Want to be mindful of how much water you're using, because if you're using a bunch of water, it's just going to rehydrate that wall down there and the wall could collapse. Now, if This was going to be a pitcher, and you were going to pull a spout. You probably want to be mindful about how much clay you left at the top, because again, that's a lot of weight you're trying to pick up right there. So you'd want a little bit of extra clay up there for strength if that is where your handle's being attached. Alright, so most of my pulling is done, and I'll just do shaping now with the rib. You all can talk. Do you have questions?
What does your hand look like when you're like doing the lip that you talked about with Serena?
On the inside?
Yeah.
Probably a pointer finger and just going, right now the pressure's going down, like pushing a wave down, not pulling it back up.
Can you show it out of the pot?
Sure. So going in like with pressure, like creating pressure. Creating pressure, and then when the clay responds to that pressure with a wave, you just keep pushing it back down, and likewise back up.
Okay.
Did you get that? We're gonna get kicked off YouTube. Another thing to be mindful of is that seam where these are coming together. Like, do you want to create a division, or are you trying to make it visually like this new form or this new top? Like, do you want it to heal into the other one? So if you want it to, like, them to be visually not different, really be mindful, because this seam, after it dries, sometimes wants to come back out. So I'm just really going over this seam well. This is also, in doing things like this, it's important to get off your wheel because you really can't see what you're doing. So unless you have a mirror in front of you, which some really vain people do. No, actually, it's a good, like, for something like this, it's most, like, studio potters here, and then just start pulling it out like so. And remember, I left a little bit of extra clay, so if you want to give this a little bit of a rise, you can displace that extra clay and lift it. You have to edit that out. All right, now I'll shape it just a bit more. So when I dry my hands, I usually use a sponge like this and go back and forth.
I'm gonna edit that out.
Edit that out.
Yep.
And now I'll just, you don't have to do this. This is just me just shaping it more.
Why are you doing it?
Just to make it, it's just kind of a boring shape right now. I'm trying to give it some flair, some drama, you know?
Yep.
It's like, why do you cuff your jeans? Why do you, like, put that polka dot shirt on? Like, it's just for that extra little
Flair.
Okay. Now, I mentioned, I used the word upright throw or trimming. You don't want to use metal tools at a metal head like that, so just be mindful that you're not scraping your wheel.
So because you put the water down at the beginning, that helps it from moving with the trimming?
It helped it stick down.
Yeah. So that's why you could get rid of the plugs of clay.
And now that it's had time, it should be pretty well stuck down and hopefully not pull off while I'm saying that.
Yeah, that'd be.
It's happened before. So that's a good question, camera person. Or camera, I should say.
Camera
I'm
individual.
not using a lot of pressure.
Can you describe the pressure that you're using?
It reminds me of a time when I was a child.
Like, is it like a light scrape? So when you like.
It's not passive. That's a good question, camera. It's not passive enough that I'm just dragging. Like it's cutting. Okay.
Okay.
So you just add pressure until it cuts.
Okay.
Good question. All right, and then you do want to stop there. See that gave right away? We're getting thin there, so you have to be careful. Maybe because I think it's boring, we're gonna add a little ring to make it less boring.
So when it starts to give, that's when you say stop.
Yeah.
Red light, green light, stop.
Yeah.